Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Test. 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 Okay. Morning, everyone. Hope you can all hear me on YouTube. No doubt if there's no sound coming out but my lips are moving, someone will let me know. Right, yeah, so let's first of all explain what announcements there are. So we've just completed the first session of the pranayama course, and that's going really well actually. I may well do another one in January, I think. Can see that happening. As well as that, we've got the 6-week mindfulness course starting on January the 5th. Now, I know it's kind of Black Friday and Cyber Monday and so on. Morning, Dave. Morning, Jill. Thanks. So due to the Black Friday, Cyber Monday discount frenzy, I thought, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So what I've done is knocked until Monday, beginning to sound like a car salesman here, used car salesman, I've knocked 40% off of the morning Sue, off of the 6-week Zoom course, which starts on January the 5th. Get your purses and wallets out. That's all I can say, because it's never going to be this inexpensive again. Right. So the other thing is, while we're still on the subject of filthy lucre, morning Caroline. In the link, for those of you that aren't currently subscribing to one of my courses, for everybody else, if you feel so moved as to donate, there's a little link there. You can donate whatever you can afford. Yeah, so it's not about trying to squeeze more than you could afford out of you. It all helps. And one of the things it helps me to do is to keep this public. Morning, Maxine, because I think that I may well just move this into one of the subscription courses otherwise. Right. So today is an interesting subject, demystifying the mind. So I was speaking to somebody about this the other day, and I quite understand. So I've been on a personal journey of understanding the nature of the mind, and also things like delved into psychology and read many spiritual books and some wisdom tradition books and so on for a number of years. But I'm aware that without doing that, it all seems so terribly complicated. And this is one of the great tragedies of our culture, is that it benefits many people to create a mystique around the mind. Then they add complex glossaries and terminologies, and then they can have some seemingly unique knowledge about the mind. And this is something that everybody's got. We've all got a mind, yes. Our experience of our mind is it's individual, but it's whatever you're experiencing, especially around meditation, it's a lot more common than you may believe. And the reason for that is, after teaching many, now tens of thousands of people online and in person over the course of the last sort of 7 or 8 years, the similarities massively outweigh the differences. And so if you just take those similarities, these are common elements of the mind that, and a lot of them are places that psychology just doesn't go. You know, look for research papers on thought. Virtually non-existent. This is the science of the mind, and there are hardly any research papers on thought. I can't see how you can possibly rationalize that. So now, to demystify it, what I did is I had a look at what I've learned, and both from my own experience and from the feedback that I get from my students and from the studies that I've done. And there are some things that are self-evident. You can just look, just notice, and there it is. That can be explained very, very simply, and it'll really benefit you in your entire life, because once you understand these fundamental concepts and you can apply them to your own mind and your own experience and your meditation practices and so on, you can see it in other people as well. And so it's a big plus. So there's a couple of things that work together in a particular sort of way. There's a thing called the interpreter, and there's a thing called the schema. And so if I just explain these two things, they will give you an insight into how the mind and the brain operate, and kind of gives us a, what is thought. There you go. So what does it do? What purpose does it have? In this case, all I'm actually referring to when I speak about thought is the narrative. Okay, so there's a narrative running in most people's heads, and it tends to be a narrative of rationalization and justification. What it's trying to do is to take our actions and make them consistent and make them appropriate, and also our thoughts and our beliefs. And what it's trying to make them appropriate with is a set of beliefs that we have known as the schema. So the schema has been known about for a very long time, one way or another. And what all the schema is a set of beliefs that we have about the world. So when we encounter something new, or we have a new experience or an unexpected experience, what happens is that the interpreter tries to rationalize that, tries to make it consistent with the schema. So here's one of my favorite quotes. I thought I read that Warren Buffett had said this, but I wasn't able to find it again. And that is, what human beings are best at is interpreting every new experience in a way that's consistent with what they already believe. That's worth repeating. What we're best at is interpreting every new experience in a way that's consistent with what we already believe. And when you think about that, that's the interpreter. What it's doing is it's taking this new experience, and it could be somebody's behavior. There's a perfect example. You've got a relationship with somebody and everything seems fine, and then one day they say or do something, and it's either shocking or it's outrageous or unexpected or whatever it might happen to be. And then what happens is the interpreter goes into overdrive trying to make sense of this. That's a wholly unhelpful experience. So the reason the interpreter got its name was through a set of experiences. A set of experiences as well, actually. A set of studies by a great neuroscientist called Michael Gazzaniga, who spoke to people who'd had their right and left hemispheres separated. And he wanted to this is the brain. The brain splits into two, basically. And it's linked by an area called the corpus callosum. And so because these people were suffering from a terrible form of epilepsy, the corpus callosum was severed, and their two separate parts of their brain were separated. And so what he did is he inquired and spoke to each separate part of the brain. And you can do that because, you know, you're I'm not sure if you're aware, but on a line down the center of the body kind of mirrors the brain. So the left hand part of the brain, that operates the right hand side of the body, the right eye, and so on, and the left hand part of the body is connected to the right hand part of the brain. And he discovered that you could instruct the subject to do something using one part of the brain, and the other part of the brain wouldn't know why it had been done. And so what he discovered was that if you sent some signals to the right hand side of the brain, to the right hand side of the body, and instructed the left hand side of the brain to do something, and then you then asked the right hemisphere, why did you do that? It would say, well, I don't know. Don't know why I stood up. I don't know why I drew a chicken. But if you do it the other way round, so you send signals to the, say, the left eye, the right hand side of the brain does something, and then you go and ask the left hemisphere, you say, why did you do that? It makes up a little story. And these stories can be absurd. So, you know, let's say you instruct the right hemisphere to stand up, and you ask the left hemisphere, why did you stand up? It will say, oh, because I need to go to the loo, or I just felt more comfortable. And it got really interesting when it came to questions such as, why did you draw a chicken? You know, and it seems the left hemisphere spins this story to explain our experience, and that's the interpreter. So the schemas, the beliefs, they don't change very easily. The interpreter's the story. So when you have that experience, when someone behaves in an unexpected way, or something unexpected happens, and your thought processes go into overdrive trying to explain it, that's your interpreter at work. Yeah. That accounts for an awful lot of our playtime, an awful lot of the time that the narrative runs in our head. Busily going over the past, the future, trying to interpret other people's thoughts and beliefs to try to explain why they're doing what they're doing and why they're thinking what they're thinking. If you think about that, you can write it down. You can, have a look at the books. What I'll do is I'll add some links to books in the description in YouTube, in this YouTube video, and so you can read about it yourself if you think this is a little bit far-fetched. And then so that then in an instant, with these two simple concepts, a lot of the noise in our heads is explained. That's what it's doing, trying to interpret external reality to align with a set of beliefs that we've already got. And this is one of the reasons it's repetitive, right? So if you've got repetitive thoughts, it's because they don't quite match what you believe. And you don't know what you believe. Your thoughts aren't really a very good indicator of that. What you do, that tells you what you believe. Okay, so there, couldn't be any simpler than that, could it? Well, I hope it's simple enough for you to understand. Okay, so that's the yada 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 in the mind, and that's what we experience quite a lot when we meditate. And so what I'll do today is meditations that will help you to become aware of the chatter in the mind and become familiar and comfortable with it, because that's the process that we apply. Don't try to silence the mind. You get the opposite. Instead, become familiar with it. and know what it's doing often. It's just trying to make sense of a complex world. And what you already know and what you believe doesn't align with what's happening out there. And there's a sense of discomfort and there's a chatter. And we want to be able to work with that. Okay. So if you've never meditated before, if you sit comfortably, you can either close your eyes or look down at the floor with your eyes half shut. And you can just get rid of that. You can listen to the sound of the bell moving through time. Just noticing the movement of the sound of the bell. Stay with it. And in the background, notice the breath causing the belly to rise and fall. And you're noticing the belly moving through time. The movement of the belly is like the ticking of a clock. It's marking the movement of time. And all you're doing is noticing the movement. If it's not obvious to you, it might help if you put your fingers on the belly. And you can notice the movement rising and falling. If your mind is very busy, then you can repeat in your mind, rising, falling. And it doesn't matter about the thoughts. Thoughts will come and thoughts will go. Thoughts will arise and thoughts will subside. And so if you check in with the body, from time to time, noticing your posture, noticing if your elbows are by the side, noticing if your head's balanced comfortably on top of the spine. And releasing any tension that might arise. just let it go with the out breath. Just let it drift away with the out breath, whatever tension there is, whatever emotions there are, whatever feelings, discomfort, whatever it might happen to be. Just letting it drift away with the out breath. And then back to noticing that tiny movement. Belly rising, belly falling. Just noticing that tiny movement. So this isn't a competition with the thoughts, because the thoughts are something else that's happening in our awareness. Because the awareness can include the thoughts as well as the movement of the belly. But that's what we're focused on. Just that tiny movement. Remembering to check in with the body every so often. Check in with your posture. Is the head balanced comfortably on the spine? Are the elbows by the side? Noticing any tension that's crept in. Just releasing it with the out breath. We can just let it all drift away with the out breath. If there's any anxiety, let that drift away with the out breath. If there's any discomfort, let that drift away with the out breath. Tension, tiredness, let that drift away with the out breath. And then back to noticing the movement of the belly. Rising, falling. What we're going to do now is helpful for those of you with a busy mind. Many of us have an internal narrative, the chatter of the mind, trying to make sense of the complex world, yada yada yada. But it's our mind, and that inner dialogue, that inner voice, that's ours. So what we do is we take that voice and use that inner voice to count our breaths. We count the in and out breaths. That's 1 on the in breath, 2 on the out breath, 3 on the in breath, 4 on the out breath, up to 10. When we get to 10, begin at 1. When we lose count, begin at 1. So that's counting 1 on the in breath, 2 on the out breath, 3 on the in breath, 4 on the out breath, up to 10. Get to 10, begin at 1, lose count, begin at 1. Could be focused on the movement of the belly, which is the most frictionless for most people. Or you can notice the breath in the nostrils, or wherever it's easy for you. 1 on the in breath, 2 on the out breath, 3 on the in breath, 4 on the out breath, up to 10. Get to 10, back to 1, lose count, back to 1. So just practice that for the next few minutes. It's called counting the breaths. Count 1 on the in breath, 2 on the out breath, 3 on the in breath, 4 on the out breath, hyphen up to 10, full stop. Then begin at 1. Lose count, comma, begin at 1. Okay, so now we're going to move into another meditation, directly into it. We're aware of the breath, noticing the breath rising and falling. And we're aware of many other things. There's sounds. There's awareness of the body, how cool or warm or comfortable or uncomfortable or tired or alert or tense or relaxed we are. What we can smell and taste. And there are also the thoughts arising in the mind. So what we're going to do is patiently wait for thoughts to arise. And when a thought arises, what we do is note that a thought has arisen. We do that by repeating in the mind, thinking, thinking. So we're noticing the breath, calmly waiting, patiently for thoughts. Thought arises. We note that a thought has arisen by saying in the mind, thinking, thinking. And then back to waiting for the next thought. And repeat. This is called noting thoughts or labeling the thoughts. Just practice this for the next few minutes. Waiting for thoughts to arise, comma. When thoughts arise, comma, say in the mind, thinking, comma, thinking. Full stop. Back to patiently waiting for thoughts. Full stop. Okay, so now then back to noticing the breath, either in the belly or the nostrils. Check in with your physiology. Did you have a comfortable posture? Are your elbows by the side? Is your head balanced comfortably on top of the spine? Might help if you place your tongue up against the back of the top teeth, gently in contact with the sharp part of the bottom teeth. Find you naturally breathe in and out through the nostrils. And either noticing the breath moving the belly, or the breath in the nostrils. We're just noticing the breath. If the mind wanders, gently, patiently return your attention to the breath and repeat. This is probably 3,000 years old. It's called following the breath. Noticing the breath, comma, mind wanders, comma, return your attention to the breath, comma, repeat, full stop. This is called following the breath, full stop. Again, we're indifferent to the thoughts. Thoughts arise, thoughts subside. And now gently moving your attention from the breath to the sound of this bell. And noticing whatever it is you can smell and taste, and the sensation of sitting, and in your very own time gently return your attention to your surroundings. Okay, so there's a little bit of mind demystification, is that much of thought is trying to make sense of our external reality, and the test for it is the set of beliefs that we have that are known as the schema, and often these beliefs are interlinked. Because of this we believe that, because of that we believe something else, and so on. And it's not designed to change very easily. So what happens is we'll look at the external reality and try very, very hard to fit it into what we already believe before we'll say, oh, actually, hang on a second, everything's different. Okay, so I'll probably continue with this slightly different topic next week. That'll be on awareness. So still demystifying the mind, but based on awareness. And provided the audio's good enough, I think I'll pop this up as a podcast on Podbean and all the other podcasting sites as well. And you can always also come back to YouTube. And don't forget, down there for those of you that wish to contribute, in the YouTube description is a link to my PayPal, and you can make a donation there if you feel so moved. And if not, then feel free to comment now or later, and also like and subscribe and so on. Okay, namaste, Caroline. Thanks, Judith. Thanks, Dan. Glad you enjoyed that. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jane. Have a great weekend. Take care. thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Helen. Great weekend.